We are Ben and MP, and this is Yabá, a wooden sailing ship that we've been rebuilding for years. We are currently in the middle of our most critical upgrade yet, a complete transition to a traditional Gaff rig. Changing a boat's rig isn't just a technical choice, it's a promise we're making to Yabá. We are asking her to take us thousands of miles across the sea, and to do that she needs a more flexible and powerful setup. Last week, the Gaff started to take shape. Today, we're tackling the heavy hitters, the main boom and the first set of jaws.
I cannot say that I have made lots of gaffs and booms before. Now have 2 gaffs and 1 boom, which is the aluminium one we had already. All that's missing, of course there's a lot missing, which we'll go into at some point a bit further on when we're building everything, putting everything together. But what's missing now is 1 more boom, so that's going to be made the same way as the gaffs. It's cedrillo wood. We've got 4 planks. We might add more, we might work on it differently, but first thing we're going to do is bring these over to the shipyard. We've got Nico on the boat next to us. Receive them. I don't know, we've got to go to this orange boat, then on the green boat, then we'll pass it over the wall to the shipyard and then to the workshop. Even though that's quite a distance, I don't think it's going to be much harder than it was to bring all this onto the boat with the dinghy when we bought it. So let's get this over, start gluing, because you know gluing takes a long time because you have to let it dry, and we'll do a lot of things in the meantime while the drying or curing process is happening. Advantage is that we've chosen pretty light wood. Out of them, only one of them is heavy, which is the ash plank, and you know, we're only doing that because it's the boom and it doesn't have to be hoisted up into the mast. So very easy work. I'm going to bring it onto from the green boat to the neighbour shipyard and then over the wall, or through the wall, we'll see, to ours. Some of you might recognize this area from where we cut and shape our floor planks. This is the magical hole in the wall that connects the 2 shipyards. So what we've done now actually is just pass planks through. I'm going to go to the other side, our shipyard, and pull them and get them in the right place. Hello. That was the easy bit, or at least the clean bit, let's call it, even though it is very dusty. Now we've got to get all the epoxy made, cut the fiberglass, place the fiberglass, and get all those clamps on, make sure there's no gaps. Now you can see why we are really happy to be in the shipyard. When I was doing this on the boat, it is possible, but working with extension cables, loud grinding machines, epoxy, lots and lots of sun, which also doesn't help, and just massive planks of wood is not convenient. So when I called Tonino and he said, we have a slot for you, I left all the Gaff stuff behind. I put a tarp over it because I knew the results here in the shipyard would be a lot better. I was planning on making the Gaff out of 3 planks. Instead we did it out of 4. So we are missing 1 over here because I wanted 4 here, which is now going to be 5. So we are going to start gluing, but in the meantime we'll have another plank shipped over. The middle plank will be ash wood, which is going to be the strongest and heaviest one. I didn't put any ash in the Gaff because it's a bit heavier. As it's a boom, I think it's going to carry a lot more strength as the main sheet is on it. Well, let's just get it built and we'll see what it looks like.
When I'm changing lanes, I ain't going back. No, I ain't going back. No, I won't go back to where I've been before. Feeling hungry, broken, cold, but life's an open road. Gonna go out with my foot down on the floor. That's why I never look back in my rearview mirror. There but more of the same. No, I never look back in my rearview mirror. Never step for when I'm changing lanes.
These two took about 1 lunchtime to be hard enough for us to remove the clamp. They're not completely solid yet, or at least the epoxy isn't. But we can remove the clamps and the next one on top, and then place the clamps again and leave that for tomorrow hopefully. But this is going a lot faster than I thought, so let's go.
Honey, you and I can find a windy road and less travel and leave behind this wicked world of woe. That's why I never look back in my rearview mirror. Nothing there but more of the same. No, I never look back in my rearview mirror. Never step for when I'm changing lanes.
Alright, we have 2 little cedar planks. The middle one's going to be ash, and then we're going to add 2 more cedar. This ash is a bit heavier, but it's going to add a lot more strength to the boom. I think it's going to be 5, 10, 11, maybe like 12 by 12 centimeters. We'll see, we can keep adding or subtracting with the flattener if we need to. So let's get epoxy fiberglass on and get them glued. For those wondering why we are building a second boom, this is part of our new rigging upgrade to Gaff. A Gaff rig uses a 4-cornered sail held up by a wooden spar at the top, which are the Gaffs that I built in the previous episode. It also needs a boom, and unlike modern triangular sails, this traditional setup allows us to carry much more canvas on a shorter mast. On a boat as heavy as Yabá, that extra surface area is going to be a game changer. It means we can catch the lightest breezes and keep this 80-foot hull moving without having to turn the engine on. It's about efficiency, power, and keeping the soul of a wooden schooner alive. We have got a pretty good boom going on, and we've got 2 very good Gaffs going on. Now what's missing, of course the boom, I want to have a kind of pindle and gudgeon or a kind of hinge working on it. However, the Gaff is going to be with jaws, and for that it's going to be a lot of designing and playing around. Luckily one of the boats here next to us has left this behind, which is an old horn or part of the jaw of the Gaff. So I'm going to start playing around. Once I've got a little bit of it going, I'll show you how we're making everything. We've got a tumbler just tumbled a tumbler template, a jaw template, and then I'm just gonna play around. And once I get confident with what I'm making, I will explain what I've done, because there is a system behind all of this, and it's not just fastening 2 of these onto the gaff and sticking it on the mast. You'll see in a bit.
If the sails are the engine, the jaws are the transmission. They take all the pressure from the gaff and transfer it to the mast. If the fit is off, they'll bind, or even worse, break under load. We're shaping these by hand, carving out the curves that will eventually be lined with leather. It's old school engineering where there is zero room for error. This is the literal connection between the boat we've lived on for 2 years and the boat she needs to become for this next journey.
Here I have the diameter of the main mast, 25.5 centimeters. I also have this, which is the diameter of the main mast, and I have this, which is the diameter of the gaff, 9 centimeters. So now that we have the gaff, which is going to sit about here in relation to this piece of wood, and the mast, we can now decide where we are going to cut the inside so the gaff stays strong enough without it being too big. Six centimeters is more than enough. I think it's going to be like so, maybe a bit less. Okay, I have been staring at this for the last 20 minutes, trying to think, have I missed something? Got this, mast, what's this called again? This, like so, and the gaff, like so. Bit further. That still gives us 45 centimeters of wood that can be fastened and glued onto the gaff, which I'm very, very happy with. And I know lots of people have the jaws pointing upwards so that when the gaff inclines, the jaws are horizontal. I think with this thickness, we might even be able to play around with that. All right, let's just start cutting. I think tomorrow is going to be a very fun day. Lots of you might think this is short, but we have plans. It can be lengthened, there can be a rope put behind it, we can whatever. So for now, this is going to be it. The looks of it and the thickness of it, of course, it's going to be rounded a lot, so it's not going to be as thick as this. But Tomorrow we can add the last plank or two onto the boom in the morning and then finish this, which would be really, really cool. Anyway, what better to finish a dusty day than a little shower? Either way, I'm gonna head over to the shipyard now with the dogs, go and have a shower, let them swim a bit. It's been very, very hot. It's been like 30 in the shade, 30 Celsius in the shade today. So let's see what it gives us tomorrow. But this will give it a good de-dust, anti-dust, undust. I guess it wasn't much after all. Good thing I dried myself after the shower at the shipyard. Good to get all the deck wet again, get rid of all that soda. Look at this beautiful varnish working over here. Anyway, it was challenging coming with the kayak because the current now is insane. I cannot say that I have made lots of gaffs and booms before, but the principles that I am working on right now is just a bit of common sense. I've done a lot of research. I want it to be stronger than weaker. I'd rather it be a bit too big. I can always grind some off later, if you see what I mean. And the main thing that I'm going based on is I can always adapt it and change it later on. I've got the foundations of gaff number 1, which is of the main mast. Now we're going to move forwards to the most forward mast, which is a little bit thinner. So I'm going to make a plywood template of the mast and work based on that. And I don't know, just start working, put stuff together, start gluing, grinding, sanding, fitting, and then we'll see what we end up with. And before I forget, one of the coolest things, once I have these done, especially the horns and the boom, is then I can give the precise measurements to get the sails made. Of course, there's lots of drawings being made and everything, and are filled in forms, but the actual millimeter work of how long the foot of the sail can be is based on what we're doing now. So I was thinking, instead of starting on the smaller mast, you can see the differences in mast sizes. I've made them out of plywood instead of cardboard. Good idea, guys. I read your thoughts before you even commented them. Maybe you did comment already. Either way, instead of starting on the smaller mast, I'm going to grab the ones I made already and just finish this one, do a full test, see if we like it. And then once this is done, we can continue on the small mast. Now we have a nice big block of épée, which is one of the strongest durable woods we have here, and I'm going to cut identical pieces out, glue them together, and then we can start making them look pretty. Whether it's normal or are we getting ahead of ourselves, but there are like 3 different projects here. There is sanding and varnishing the gaff with, well, sanding with a palm sander and varnishing the gaff. There is gluing the boom and also making the jaws. So we're going to put the gaff aside, or at least the sanding of the gaff aside, and we're going to start gluing the 4th plank onto the 3rd plank of the boom, as well as gluing these 2 pieces of jaws together. Maybe it's just a phase I am in, but I feel like having 2 planks glued together with a piece of fiberglass or without, whatever, is a lot stronger than just having 1 piece. Okay, now this is not as traditional, but if you have 1 crack in here, it's not going to pass the 2nd because they are glued together, and you also have the benefit, or the mechanical benefit, of the fiberglass in between. Anyway, let's glue the last plank of cedrinho onto the boom, and let's glue the jaws together, or at least the 2 parts of half a jaw, and then we can start playing around with them. And if we really like this design, it's quite quickly made. We can start working on the 2nd mast, the jaws of the 2nd mast.
We have 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 4. Once this is glued, I think I'm going to start tidying this up, see what shape we have, see what dimensions we have. Either way, we're going to let that dry until tomorrow. We were just going to glue one part of the jaw onto the other, same for the other side. However, we had the fiberglass at hand, so why not just add it, extra strength, you know? So until now, when it's all wet, we can't do anything with it. We're going to go and get a quick, refreshing drink. Very, very hot today. It's 34 degrees Celsius, which is 98 Fahrenheit, which is very, very hot. So we're trying to stay in the shade over here. But I'm very excited to see what this is going to look like tomorrow. Let's get all these cleaned up, put them all in place, and it should start taking shape. I say that every day, but tomorrow it will. Amongst all this mess, and in our case fiberglass, glue, sawdust, there is some peace to be found. So cue the peaceful music and watch this satisfaction. We are practically putting the same varnish, or whatever you want to call it, Sparlac settle on everything, whether it's anti-skid or not. Now, what we just did, or what Nico just did, is he went over all of it once, and it's already sucked into the wood, and he can go over it a second time, which is pretty crazy. I don't know if you feel the difference between that and that. So the first coat literally sucked in. It's quite light wood. I just didn't want to leave this wood here without varnish on anymore. At least now it's all protected. I've learned from my mistakes. Make sure everything's nice and protected, and then you can just improve on it. So very, very happy with this result. Beautiful, beautiful varnish over this wood. The fishing boat down there is putting his last coats, or his first and last coats of anti-fouling on, so he's going to launch today, he said. They're also going to launch soon, and I feel that even though we haven't gotten the boat on land yet, we have gotten quite a lot done. Just imagine having the boat on the dry and not working on the boat, but working on the boom and the gaffs. It would feel kind of, why are you doing this when the boat's lifted? So I'm very, very happy we can get all this done. And I'm hoping you guys are liking this process, seeing a rookie making stuff that is very, very, very important on the boat. There's a bit of fiberglass cutting involved today, so I've got long sleeves on. And by the way, if you haven't seen these yet, front and back UV vests. Front is a drawing of Yabá, back drawing of Yabá with the boat on, drawn by Taj, out of Taj. We have these in the store, and if you haven't seen the store yet, just click down below. It's these stuff like the caps. You've got some of these UV vests or these UPF vests. We've got white t-shirts, black t-shirts, plenty of things. So definitely go and check that out. We put the boom aside as we're waiting for the last plank. Nico is doing some touch-ups on the two gaffs before he varnishes the second one.
and I've got the horns over here, the jaws, and I'm going to just start sanding. I've already cut all the fiberglass off, which just makes it a lot less dusty. I'm going to make it nice and flat, get this nice and flat, round them a little bit, see what we can get these looking like before we drill a couple of holes in and fasten them onto the gaff. I have realized that these jaws are way too thick for the size of the gaff that we had. These are 8 centimeters and the gaff is 9. The problem with that is how do we fit it? For me to cut the gaff flat so this can be screwed on, I'm gonna have to cut way too much gaff. And I already started kind of rounding the inside of this. For me to round the inside of this fit to sit nicely around the gaff, I'm gonna have to dig in a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove 1 centimeter of each, which brings it to 6 centimeters. It's going to be 6 centimeters strong plus the fiberglass in the middle, so that will be more than enough. Which I'm just going to do the hand planer one side, hand planer other side, round it, and then the next step will be a lot easier. Now I'm going to grab the gaff, put it over here and see how we're going to mount them. Of course, we're going to mount them all dry, just with screws. It's going to be very stressful putting the first holes through the gaff. Initially, I didn't even want a single hole, but to get these on, it's going to be necessary. So, looking very cool. I'm thinking of ways to lengthen this to give it the extra angle. Well, you'll see in a little bit, but we're going to put the gaff here and I'm going to play around with how these are going to be mounted. And remember, it's not just these two, fasten them to the gaff and it goes up. There are still some more moving parts involved, so that's really, really important that we take into consideration. Should I overthink it? Should I just accept this is what it's going to be like? Now all I'm going to do is I'm leaving a little bit of space here so the tumbler can fit in. This has to go on a little axle, so it has to move, and I'm leaving a little bit of plate behind it in order for that to be able to move without having to remove any of the gaff. I've been doing a lot of looking up, looked at lots of pictures, I've bought lots of books and I've been reading, and I think this is going to be it. The beautiful roundness is going to be playing to there. The goal with this is to do it very, very slowly. We want to remove the gap where the flatness meets the roundness. We're almost there. So I'm going to be sanding, placing it to see if we've reached the point, sanding and again to make sure we don't go too far. Depending on your standards, of course, you might want to go further and further and further with this. However, in my case, look how close that is on one side and on the other. I'm not going to spend much more time on this. Actually, I'm not going to spend any more time on this. The only thing I have to do now is make sure these fit around the mast nicely, nice and snug. But all I'm going to be doing is planing this away. I'm not going to be touching the gaff anymore. Taken the mast template of the main mast and placed it over here, and you can see we just have to remove that outside line and this over here, and that will be very, very, very tight. What we can do next is then bring it to the boat. Once we've got them all done, bring them to the boat together with the boom, and then all we need to do is sand the inside, because it will be millimeters after that in order to make it fit nicely. I'm going to now put a 3/8 of an inch threaded bar through there and there, maybe even a third one.
Já. Montar cavalo só, viu?
Just realized it was on cinematic mode, so you had the fuzziest background ever then. But let's check this boat going in the water. I always love it when boats get lifted, especially ones like that. When boats get lifted or launched, it's always really, really cool. Very impressive what they do here. Anyway, that boat's in the water, another boat done. Anyway, I need to get back to work. If I watch every boat, every cool thing in this shipyard, I'm not going to get very far. Look at what's happening next to us. Those guys have like 8 caulkers, 3 carpenters, 5 painters. It's like insane work over there. So if anything takes long, it's their fault, because I'll be watching the whole time.
Seeing these massive pieces of timber finally take shape is a huge milestone. It's one thing to have a plan on paper, but it's another to feel the true weight of the rig in your own hands. The boom is starting to look like a boom, and the first pair of jaws is almost there, but the list of to-dos never seems to get any shorter. We wish we could stop the clock to get more jobs done, but time doesn't work that way. We've still got a lot of shaping and sanding ahead of us to get these ready for the sea, and the window for the high tide is closing in fast. We are racing to finish these gaffs before the moon gives us enough water to haul the boat out. The clock is ticking and Yabá is waiting, but we're doing our part one step at a time. See you in the workshop next week.